Hello everyone, this is Pico Entertainment and we are back again, and here now we have another video for you, and we're going to take a look back on the Walking Dead series and reflect on its overall impact and status as one of the longest running comic book television shows ever. Now there'll likely be spoilers for the series throughout, so just beware when going into this overall video. Now of course, The Walking Dead is a television adaptation of the comic book series created by Robert Kirkman way back in 2003, which ran all the way up to 2019 for 193 issues. The series itself was created by Frank Darabont and debuted on the AMC network in the United States on October the 31st, 2010. Staying closely to the source material, the series told the story of a present day world turned completely upside down by a zombie epidemic, where a human, once dead, transformed into a decayed zombie, aimlessly wandering the land. Referred to as walkers, any human that is scratched or bitten by a walker would end up turning into one of them. The course of the series would follow a group of heroes trying to survive in this zombie apocalypse, which has left much of the world barren of food, supplies and civilization. There would be further developments as the heroes would encounter violent gangs, cruel dictatorships and larger corrupt civilizations. Despite the zombies' existence, they would find themselves up against more human antagonists who are ruthless tyrants, psychotic leaders or religious zealots. We would see the characters facing scenarios, constantly making life or death decisions in order to survive. Now when looking back on The Walking Dead as an entire show, it was very mixed and inconsistent in terms of its overall quality and storytelling. There were times of greatness mixed in with big lulls throughout that would see the show struggle to maintain its narrative and justify its existence. Its greatest strength was how vivid and accurate a visual recreation of the source material it created. The makeup design and effects and aesthetics of all of the walkers was truly awesome, evoking memories of the George A. Romero zombie movies. In its early seasons, we would have constant moments of tension, dread and suspense. There'd be multiple graphic sequences of characters getting bitten and devoured, limbs ripped apart, organs getting splattered everywhere, all in a truly gruesome fashion. And when the show got it right, it was truly gripping and visceral to watch, creating that realistic horror experience. What the show also got right was having a core group of characters that were all rootable enough to keep you engaged in, and this is something that all long running series should have. That main ensemble of characters whose journey we get to see develop throughout multiple seasons. As per the source material, the primary protagonist was local Sheriff Rick Grimes, played by Andrew Lincoln, who we see introduced in the opening episode Days Gone By, and Rick would go on to be the main leader of the group of survivors. We initially see him experience huge losses with the likes of his wife Laurie and also his son Carl in one of the biggest deviations from the source material. Later on in the series, Rick became a very divisive character for me personally, as he would become very reckless and, dare I say, arrogant in certain decisions that at many times would cost lives. Throughout the series, we would see the emergence of other characters such as Glenn, Maggie, Daryl, Carol, Herschel and Michonne, and they would also become established protagonists throughout the series. We would later on see further additions such as Morgan, Ezekiel, Rosita, Eugene, Abraham and Aaron. And having this constant ensemble of characters who could carry certain arcs of the show certainly helps the series' longevity, especially when actor Andrew Lincoln departed the show in season 9, where it's hinted that Rick dies in a bridge explosion, but at the end of the episode it's confirmed that he is still alive. Now, as well as having strong hero characters, we also did see some memorable villains. David Morrissey's The Governor was brought in season 3 in terms of the Woodbury prison arc. We saw Samantha Morton as Alpha in season 9, where she was the leader of the massive Whisperer group and also dealt with her complex relationships with both Lydia and Beta. And of course we had Jeffrey Dean Morgan, most famously as Negan, the most standout villain in both the series and the comic book, bringing all of his natural screen charisma to the role. Now in terms of flaws, I think the biggest issue is perhaps not only with the series itself but also the source material. The overall concept lacks a certain purpose to the narrative, which is essentially a survival story. The characters fend off zombies for a certain amount of time, they come up against a more powerful group with larger numbers and a tyrant leader, they get defeated, they regroup, rinse and repeat. Now this type of storytelling is fine in the short term, but eventually it became repetitive and ponderous. There's no end goal in terms of finding a place free of zombies, there's no cure for the disease, we never explore the idea of a different type of zombie species or other mutant beings to mix things up. Apart from a few episodes, we never really delved into the actual cause of the disease or what made it spread so fast. So in many ways the show was stuck in a narrative box. And this is where the show really struggled to stay compelling. Issues probably arose around season 3 to 4 with arcs really being drawn out. I've always felt that 16 episodes for each season was just too long. And this wasn't helped with the seasons constantly getting split in half with mid-season breaks, making viewers wait multiple months for the second half of the season, which would make you lose track of the main story and also interest in the show. There was also a certain lack of logic with the characters and their decisions and actions. Now, as per the source material, we would see multiple character deaths, which started off as very shocking, but after a while just became part of the norm, and it felt that characters were just being killed off for shock value without any real impact. Now, in terms of the series as a whole, it was probably at its strongest in the earlier seasons, where you had a smaller scale, keeping everything in closer proximity. There were certainly some outstanding moments, in particular where we saw the emergence of Carol's daughter Sophia walking out the barn as a zombie. We had that heartbreaking moment where we see Rick completely distraught at the loss of Laurie, and also another very emotional moment where we saw Daryl having to kill his brother who had been zombified. Now for me, the most standout episode was the season 4 mid-season finale, Too Far Gone, a truly epic installment full of spectacle and emotion and drama as we see the heroes in an all-out battle against the governor's forces, resulting in the Woodbury prison being destroyed. In terms of profile, the show was probably at its peak with the season 6 finale, Last Day on Earth, which saw the entrance of Negan and a recreation of the most iconic story arc from the comics with its 100th issue. Now after that episode, following seasons probably meandered too long in terms of the war against Negan and the Saviours. The show did freshen things up with a time jump shortly after Rick's departure in season 9, where we saw the emergence of Alpha and the ongoing Whisperer War conflict, where a large group of people dressed up as walkers and wearing masks of the walkers' faces. We saw another shocking revelation where we saw many characters killed with their heads zombified and attached to pikes. Now the 11th and final season introduced the largest civilized community known as the Commonwealth, where at first it seems like a promised land that people can exist happily away from all walkers. But later on, layers of corruption and deceit are discovered. It just dragged on for far too long as we got another batch of extended episodes. Now when looking back on The Walking Dead, many people seem to have forgotten how massive a show it was. There was a stage where the show was truly a phenomenon, producing even greater viewer numbers and discussion and traction than Game of Thrones. At its absolute peak, the show would manage to generate consistently between 15 and 20 million viewers amongst American households. The series was without question the biggest entity within all of AMC's broadcasting network, and would go on to generate several spin-offs from the original series. So we would first see the prequel series Fear the Walking Dead, which debuted on August the 23rd, 2015, and spent the first couple of seasons concentrating on the actual cause of the zombie outbreak. Despite not being as prolific as the original show, Fear the Walking Dead has regardless enjoyed a successful run of currently 7 seasons and over 101 episodes. On October the 4th, 2020, we saw a much smaller series titled The Walking Dead: The World Beyond, which focused on a younger group of teenagers surviving a zombie apocalypse. This eventually only lasted for 2 seasons. We saw the Tales of the Walking Dead debuting on August the 14th, 2022, again focusing on another group of survivors within a zombie apocalypse. And the legacy of the show is set to continue even further, with spin-off series concentrating on the likes of Daryl, Negan and Maggie, and also Rick and Michonne. And when I look back on The Walking Dead, we certainly are looking at a show that for a short amount of time was probably the biggest television show within entertainment. I would say it was a show that probably overstayed its welcome by at least 3 to 4 seasons. We saw many compelling performances from all of the actors involved, and at the very least it was for the most part a very strong and loyal recreation of the original source material. It certainly pushed the boundaries in television in terms of showing violent and graphic scenes of zombies that we probably haven't seen before in recent years. I just think the show was let down by inconsistent writing and probably an over-reliance on the show's success, where for multiple seasons the story and narrative was just dragged down for longer than what it should have been. Once again, I believe the series was overall defeated by an ultimate flaw in the concept itself, and that we get a never-ending story of survival without any end goal or destination. But despite all of that, it can't be denied that Walking Dead has certainly been a most successful and impactful show certainly having a certain cultural impact within modern day entertainment and fandom, for many multiple years sparking off lots of controversy and debate and conversation amongst fans. So alongside Game of Thrones, which also came to a close, we do ask the question as to whether we will indeed see another show as massive as The Walking Dead in terms of its longevity and also its success, and that in itself overall is certainly a reason to give the show enough credit for without question becoming one of the most outstanding and successful shows within all of entertainment, ending its run with 11 seasons and over 177 episodes. So there's my overall thoughts and feelings and look back on The Walking Dead as an entire series. Let me know what you think in the comments below. Do you have any favourite episodes throughout the series? Do you think the show was overhyped at times, or do you think it at times didn't get the full recognition and credit that it fully deserves? How big do you think its impact on entertainment overall? Do you think it indeed was a bigger show than Game of Thrones? And if you do or you don't think that way, then also let me know in the comments and we can have further debate and discussion. And if you have any other further topics or television shows or movies or any other issues within the entertainment industry that you'd like to see me cover within the future, then also let me know and I will see if I can provide further commentary for you on that subject matter in the future. Please also hit and like the subscription and notification buttons so I can provide you with more high quality content like this in the future. But that's it for now. Take care of yourselves and I will see you very, very soon.